Hello everyone, my name is Michael Garcia, and welcome to another episode of Nerd Culture. First, let's start with some current news on today's episode. The Oscar nominations have been announced, including the Best Picture nominations, which include Judas and the Black Messiah, Nomadland, Minari, The Father, Sound of Metal, Mank, Trial of the Chicago 7, and Promising Young Woman. Currently, Mank is leading with 10 nominations total. This year also made history by giving a Best Actor award to Steven Yeun, the first Asian American to ever get a Best Actor nomination. I find it especially endearing that the Oscars have become more diverse throughout the years, and I can only hope that this trail continues in the near future. Now let's move on to what we have for you today. First, we join Jared Pryce and his perspective on Zack Snyder's 4-hour directorial cut of his previously unfinished film, now released on HBO Max, Justice League.
The Justice League Snyder cut was incredible. The original Justice League movie was okay. It had its moments, but I had a lot of issues with the movie, especially when it came to pacing and certain scenes that did not need to be in there at all. The Snyder cut, however, portrayed these characters in a better light than they were in the original film. I'm a huge DC fan, so watching this movie from start to finish after that garbage cut that Whedon released was so satisfying. And just to see the whole movie being done right was good enough for me. From its characters to its storyline, they did everything effortlessly and everything made sense. That was my original issue with the first cut. Nothing really made sense. These 4 hours weren't useless time being wasted. These 4 hours meant something and they made sense. Of course, I still have my gripes with the movie. Flash's run. But aside from all that, I feel that Snyder did all these DC fans well. They gave us a sense of closure and even could have hinted at a sequel in the future. And after this amazing cut, I am sure looking forward to that in the future. If I were to rate this movie, I would give this movie a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10. I would recommend this movie for people who enjoy a lot of action-packed moments and a good storyline. I want to say thank you to Michael Garcia for having me here today to discuss this cut. And for those who enjoy superheroes as much as me, I hope you can really cherish and appreciate this movie just as much as I do.
Thank you, Jared, for your perspective on this film. I'm sure that this film's existence alone is something different and new for DC Films, being that Zack Snyder actually was able to finish his vision of Justice League. Now, as we come to the end of today's episode, I discuss one of Marvel Comics' published graphic novels. Hey everyone, Michael Garcia here, once again, meeting you in the comfort of my own home. And today, I'm going to do a review of Marvels, brought to you by the Oceanside Library. So, Marvels is a almost kind of comic mini-series, basically about the human perspective of the Marvel Universe. So first, let's go over the criticisms that I have in this comic, because for the most part, I did very much enjoy this comic series. I believe the first chapter of the series is personally, for me, not as engaging as the rest of the series. The first chapter serves as a little introduction to Phil as a news reporter and basically a photographer who starts to experience the Marvel Universe happening around him. The first chapter also serves as an introduction to some of the Marvel heroes themselves, such as Captain America, Human Torch, and Namor the Submariner. And I think while the first chapter is very good, I think as a whole it's a little less engaging and feels a little bit slower. Now let's move on to what I liked, which was pretty much everything else about this comic series. I mean, it's so great, in my opinion. I think that it is a genius idea for someone to think of a way to put the Marvel Universe in human perspective. Finally, I think another one of my favorite things about this comic series is how it provides a almost critique on society. And I know that word has become a joke with Joker and pretty much all those things coming out. But I feel like it's true. It's almost like in Edward Scissorhands, or maybe even a Joker to some degree. It provides kind of a critique on society in little bits and pieces here and there. For example, the X-Men in this series is a great example. People are attacking X-Men even when they're trying to save them. They're throwing bricks at their heads. And they're doing all these things. And there's just a general misunderstanding of superheroes in this story because, again, this is from a human perspective. People are seeing heroes for the first time and they don't know what to think. And I think that is just a great way to show how the Marvel Universe works, again, from a human perspective, which is probably my favorite thing about this comic. It shows the human perspective. The art in this comic book it's great. It's just great. It reminds me, I believe the artist's name is Alex Ross, and he does a lot of work like this where there's kind of a line to cross in comic books where it's realistic and cartoony, and I think this comic book, even though it's more realistic, I think it hits that line pretty perfectly. Alright, now to give my final score on this comic book. In conclusion, besides some aspects of the series feeling a little bit less fleshed out than others, I think this is a great series. As a Marvel fan, even as maybe if you're not the biggest superhero fan, I would still compel you to try to check this out because I think it's just a compelling story. A compelling human story of humanity trying to deal with superheroes and supervillains and what people think and how people have to deal with this kind of stuff. So in the end, Marvel's, in my opinion, is a 9 out of 10 comic. It's not perfect, but I think it is just very, very, very well handled in general, honestly. And honestly, something like this, while I was reading it, I was just like, why hasn't the MCU looked at this? As a miniseries on Disney Plus, this would be perfect. I just think as a comic series, this comic works very well. And I think that as a live action series, it could work so well. So, thank you all so much for joining me here today. I recommend you check out this book, and I recommend you go to the Oceanside Library to pick up more books like these and plenty of other kinds of books. Well, that's all we have for today, folks. Be sure to tune into the Oceanside Broadcasting YouTube channel for future broadcasts to come. Also, be sure to tune in later in the year for more nerd culture episodes to come. Thank you all for tuning in, and remember, for all things Sailor Nation, we are the Sailor Station.